Hello YouTube, this is Headley South, and today we're going to be looking at the plans I've come up with for making the Headley South layout. So I'm pretty excited about this. So what I thought I'd start off by doing is having a look at some of my ideas from earlier before we get on to what I've ultimately come up with. So my layout is going to be based inside a shed, so it's going to be a shed layout. And initially I'd kind of envisaged it being maybe J-shaped and a helix at each end, something along those lines, or maybe even kind of around the room sort of square shaped. But I couldn't kind of get into it what I wanted. There wasn't enough working area, because one of the things I want inside the shed is a little workbench where I can go and be doing some of the work and modelling and so on and so forth while my family are busy doing what they're doing. So trying to fit the round the room layout in wasn't really working because of the constraints of what I was trying to fit into it. Anyway, after I'd been watching the first few videos of Kevin Tregunner and his Penwithers layout, if you haven't been and seen Kevin's channel, it's well worth going and having a look. But I was having a look at his Penwithers layout when he first started on YouTube, and I liked the way he'd integrated it. It was on various levels, but it kind of nicely moulded together. So that inspired me to start off, and what I was starting to look at was something like that. And basically this area here would have been an area where I could have popped up from. It was loosely kind of envisaged on what Kevin had done, but I was then going to try and twist the idea to my own way of thinking. There was going to be a helix over here that would just pop up onto the top of the layout, and basically I'm going to have a hidden fiddle yard to store my locos underneath the actual layout, and the helix was just to basically go down to the hidden fiddle yard and to come back up. But this didn't work for me because I needed somewhere over in this area to pop up from as well, to enable me to work on the opposite side of the layout and trying to fit the station in, and then also things like engine shed and various other bits. There just wasn't the space. So back to the head scratching. I also then had a look through a set track book, and I thought, that layout could be, partially used. So I did it in set track so that I could then kind of mimic it once I got a rough idea into using code 55 and flex track. And the one I was looking at was this one, but same again, it just didn't seem to work for me. There was nowhere I could put a workbench, and it just wasn't doing it for me. I kind of thought, if I built something like that, my heart's not in it and I'll never thoroughly enjoy it. If I don't, I won't produce it to my best, and so therefore it's a no for me. So from there I then came up with the idea of doing a layout with two holes in the layout, as you can see, here and here, and having a main station down the bottom here and a little station up the top, just up here, with various tracks going off and sort of winding around on the layout. Now this version has taken many incarnations, because I'd kind of work out, oh, this bit doesn't work, that bit doesn't work, so on and so forth. But the principles were the same. Over here you can see a little dotted line going along, which was my access road down to the hidden fiddle yard, because basically that will go down underneath and it will wind underneath down and into the hidden fiddle yard, and it just wasn't quite working. So I played around with it some more and I tweaked it some more, and what I then came up with after a while was this. I'd got a station still at the top, I'd added an additional station in, I'll explain why in a moment, but I felt it was too cluttered and it still wasn't working for me. Basically, the green line, railway line that you can see going round the layout is going to be based on a preserved railway. And so I wanted, having been on a few where they have a few stations, to not just have the main Headley South station. I wanted to have some more that maybe it stopped at. But it just felt too cluttered, it didn't work, and I didn't like it, and I didn't like the way the engine shed was, and it just didn't seem right, and it felt squashed. So I decided that wasn't working. So what I've now come up with is a nice blank sheet of paper, if you like. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop the preserved railway on, like so. So what I've actually done, down here in this gap is where the Headley South station's going to be. So I'll just pop in those bits of track so it shows up. The station area here is 2 inches above baseboard level. This will increase round to here until it's 4 inches above baseboard level. It will then carry on round, it ends up about 4.5 inches above baseboard level, and then it will slowly decline right round this loop until it gets to this point where it will be at 1 inch above baseboard level, and then it will slowly incline again, come back round until it's back at 2 inches above baseboard level, and it will join back onto the station. Now basically what my plan is in the future is I'm going to have computer automation of the layout, where I can have it completely run by the computer, and it will do its own thing, and I can set up a timetable, and it will run to a schedule, and it will stop in stations and wait for a set period and things like that, and it will wait until a train has gone past and various other bits. But I still have the ability to control the layout myself. I can control, say, 1 or 2 locos on my own while the computer controls the rest, or I can control the whole layout on my own if I choose. It's whatever I feel like doing on that particular day. I can set up different schedules for different days, so I can do something different with it every time I run it. But the other advantage is, if my children want to come out and have a play, I can let them control one train and leave the others being automated by the computer. But should they make a mistake, the computer will go into like a fail-safe mode and will stop whatever train they may be about to collide with because they didn't notice it, and so you avoid that kind of collision issue. And so because the layout will be automated at times, my plan is to have one train running in this direction on the preserved railway and one train running in this direction on the preserved railway, and the passing point will be at the station. So one will be waiting at the station to leave while the other one pulls in. Then the first train will leave and go off to Headley South station, and the other one will be waiting at the station, and you get the basic picture. You know, it'll kind of be timed and set so that they can avoid each other, etc. But the other thing also is, until I automate it, if I was controlling both trains, I can do that as well. So that's the idea of the preserved railway. Having been to a few where some of them connect to a main railway, I thought it'd be nice if it was on one side of the main station, and then it went off and a roundabout on a route had its own station, which is obviously up here, which is going to be Allerton Grove station, and then it would come back to the main station. So that's the idea of the preserved railway. Then the next line that we have, I'll just bring up, this is line 1. We'll start off at 2 inches, same as the above baseboard level, same as the station. It'll run round up here, still at 2 inches, and then basically from this point onwards it will climb up so that it passes over the preserved railway, and then basically it will start to decline again, pass underneath the preserved railway that's running above it where it's come from up the top, and then it will come down here, still declining, until it reaches 2 inches again and come back into the station. Now this track can also, as you can see, link onto the track that the preserved line's onto, and over here, 3 points, it can also link onto the other line here. But that basically will be a clockwise running track running that way, and this incline will probably be shown on top of scenery as it goes around, and for example that'll be like a tunnel portal where it goes through, and it will be basically underneath, and then it will reappear here maybe out of another tunnel portal. And what I'll do is an open plan kind of back area here, so should I get a derailment I can get to this area quite easily. So that's the idea of line 1. Line 2, basically similar sort of thing, starts off here at 2 inches, and then when it gets around to about here it starts to decrease in height, and it comes round here decreasing in height, passes underneath here, keeps decreasing in height until around about here it reaches baseboard level, and then basically the track will pass underneath there, and it then starts to incline again, come round till it reaches 2 inches again and joins back onto the station. So that one's going to drop down to the lowest level. I'll now add in line 3, which is this one, which here starts off at 2 inches, and it basically follows the same pattern as the previous track, declining down, come on round through here until it comes right round to about here where it will reach baseboard level. Then this one will pass underneath that track, and then it takes a slightly different route, comes round here, comes round and back onto the station. Now, so the red outer track and this blue one will both be travelling in a clockwise direction, and the purple one in the middle will be travelling anti-clockwise, so going this way round. So they won't be travelling in the same direction, and so it won't be totally the same. The other thing, over here I've put a double slip in so that there'll be a link off here in a minute, which you'll see, that can join either the blue track, and it also links over here to the purple track. And what this double slip is for, if I just bring it up, is this track here, which will come round and then go through a tunnel, disappear off scene, be underneath the station, and it will go underneath the layout. And this is my access road down to the fiddle yard that I'm going to build underneath the layout, where I'll store my locos, etc., so they're nice and safe and sound underneath. And the idea being that when something's coming up from the fiddle yard, it'll come up this roadway and it can join through the double slip onto the blue track and just carry on round in a clockwise direction until it gets to the station area. if I want to put some stuff into the fiddle yard underneath the layout, then it would travel along the purple line in an anti-clockwise direction, come round through this point, through the double slip, onto the access road and down and underneath the layout. And it just gives me that ability to have simple access to it, and I'll build like probably along the side, and I may build it right the way around 3 sides, and basically have storage space for like the locos with the carriages on, so I don't need to disconnect anything. I can just send it down there, park it up, and then when the next want it, bring it up. But it means that while I'm not using the layout, nothing's left out sort of on display. It's all underneath, safe and sound. So that's the idea of that particular line. Then if I now bring in the station buildings, say Headley South is going to have sort of large platforms. Obviously I need to try and see what size buildings I can get, etc. So the station won't be this small. There'll probably be other buildings, etc. It won't necessarily be that side, but the principle being that there'll be a station, a footbridge. At the end here and here will be a water tower, so for the preserved railway they'll be able to take on water. Doesn't matter whether it's a train going clockwise or anti-clockwise, they'll be able to take on water whilst they're in the station. Just outside the station here will be a coaling tower where the tender can take on coal. So at least that way the preserved railway steam locos are catered for. Just over here will be a signal box, and that basically covers the sort of basic buildings for Headley South Station. If I now was to bring in the bits here, so coming off of this point, we can then spur off through a 3-way point here. There's 2 3-way points here which basically go into 6 lanes and into the engine shed. Now I believe this is a TMD. If I'm wrong, please somebody correct me. I'd like to have the right terminology. But basically, yeah, so engine shed and 6 lanes through the 2 3-way points. A spur coming off here through a Y point that leads up through a point to 2 lanes, and these will be diesel refuelling points for the diesel locos. Then the other side of the Y point will lead up to a turntable, and then I have a lane there where I can park up a loco, a lane over here where I can park up a loco, an engine shed with a couple of lanes, and you know, over here will also be things like water and coal refueling points, the usual kind of thing you'd find with a steam engine shed. So that basically covers that bit. Then for Allerton Grove Station, I'm planning on you know, single platform either side, footbridge across to link the 2 platforms, water tower at one end, water tower at the other, so that the steam locos can take on water if required. Signal box just over here, and then a more country sort of feel station building. I'm thinking this one will probably definitely be Metcalfe kit. This one at Headley South may also be a Metcalfe kit, or I may look at doing a kit bash or some other type of building. I haven't really decided yet. Then basically there'll be a car park here, you know, attached to the station. I'm just going to bring in the baseboard and what have you. So over here is going to be my workbench where I'll work and do bits of modelling and what have you. This is the doorway into the shed. and then I'm going to have a pull-out drawer that the laptop can live in and slide under the layout and then pull out, so that I can control the trains, etc., with the computer program. And over here just some shelves for general supplies, as I get them, so like ballast, scatter, all the various stuff that we all kind of accumulate when building a model railway. And then basically these two holes here are where I can pop up in the layout, and basically through doing some testing and measuring, etc., I should be able to reach basically into the corners, and the two circles together should cover the area. And then with the laptop drawer pushed in, I should be able also to cover the area over here. The other thing with the workbench, the top will be folding, so a few inches out from the wall there'll be a hinge, and the top will be able to fold upwards, so it's out the way, or I may do it folding downwards. I hadn't kind of planned that far ahead yet, but the top will hinge out the way so that it'll be similar sort of to like the shelves. I'll have a bit of area which I can't get right to the wall, but I will be able to reach all the layout from down here and from the two pop-up points under the layout. So that's the idea of how the layout's going to integrate with how I'm going to get into the layout. Then what I'd planned to do is over here do a water feature of a lake with some kind of bridge going across. Whether I'll find a bridge that I like or whether I'll kind of kit build something, I don't really know yet. I'm still looking into bridges, but the idea being to do a bridge across the water feature, maybe have a boat or so on the lake, somebody fishing, that kind of thing. Bit of scenery around and about, and because this is Allerton Grove, the grove referring to trees and like a foresty area, I thought kind of do an area here of trees and forestry, that kind of thing. And so it's kind of like a nice area with a lake, some trees, nice scenery, and the railway running beside it, and so on and so forth. And then if I bring up the village, which I plan to do up the top, what I plan to do here, this will be Allerton Village. So this here is kind of like a roadway and a slip road running in front of the houses, etc. Over here I'm planning on doing a church. I've seen a few that I like. Metcalfe do a nice one, but I've seen a couple of others, so I haven't decided exactly on which one, but I thought a church, maybe a churchyard, some gravestones, that kind of thing. If you look over by the church, you can see that there's a footbridge that leads from Allerton Village down to the forest area, so that the residents of the village can go out into the forest and also go down to the lake to do a bit of fishing or go out on the lake. Next door, I was planning on doing a school. Now Metcalfe don't do a school in Engage, but a bit of kit bashing. I've seen a building I like, so a bit of kit bashing, and I'm going to make it into a school. Then the plan over here was to have some playing fields, and this would be like a pavilion, say for like cricket, etc. And then I was going to do some terraced houses coming along here. Then Metcalfe cafe and shop building that they do. And then I thought about something like the Metcalfe semi-detached houses, or different style of houses, so it isn't the terraced houses. I wanted a slightly more upmarket looking house. Now whether it'll go there or whether I'll change the way the buildings sort of are, I haven't decided yet, but it's just to give a representation. Then I thought corner shop, butcher, and another corner shop, a baker, Then over here, I've seen a nice pub I like the look of. I did think about doing the Cornish pub that Metcalfe do, but I saw a nice Tudor looking style pub that I liked, so I might well go for that one. Then maybe another pair of semi-detached houses, nice posh houses. And then the plan was over here to have a garage and sort of small petrol station that you quite often see in villages, where it's the local garage and he has a couple of petrol pumps that all the villagers use, so that kind of there. This will be like a little village green. I am planning on maybe putting something like a war memorial there, maybe just a bench or what have you. It's not going to be a huge green, so I don't want to over clutter it, so maybe it'll just be a war memorial and I don't know, cut the benches or something like that. And then obviously the roadway here is coming along. It links here to the car park. Now just here and here is going to be a level crossing. Now another thing I've seen on Kevin Tregunner's site was where he did his automated level crossing, where when the train came along it set off flashing lights and a siren sound, and then it lowered the barriers so that the roadway was closed, and as the train went past, when it got past, so the alarm would stop, the lights would stop flashing and the barriers would go up. And okay, he's done it in O gauge, I'm sorry, not O gauge, double O gauge, but I'm going to look at trying to do the same thing but in N gauge. So that's my plan with that. Then over here, similar again for the preserved railway, doing another maybe automated level crossing just there. So that's two things I'm looking at doing there. And I think that about covers all the bits and pieces. So what I was hoping was all you wonderful people who already have layouts, and I enviously watch your videos, I was wondering if you could have a look at this. If you can see something I've done that's stupid, in the sense of that won't work or anything like that, I'm open to any comments. If you have any ideas of, have you thought about having this or have you thought about having that? Could you comment on this video, any suggestions, or send me a PM? Because we're all learning and I'm quite happy to someone point out the error in my ways. I may not agree with it. At the end of the day, it's my layout, and you know, you've got to build the thing that you're happy with and want to build. But by the same consolation, I'd rather somebody say to me, why don't you do this, and me make the decision not to do it, than somebody not say something and at a later date when I've built it go, oh, why didn't you do this? And they hadn't said anything. I think, oh, I wish I'd known about that. So if you see anything that, you know, blindingly obvious that I'm doing wrong, or you think of something that could be added, also what's your general impressions of what I've come up with? Yes, so any thoughts or comments will be most appreciated. One other thing while I remember, I just wanted to do a big shout out, which I think this one's very important, which is to my wife, Beth, who has given me lots of support with me doing this layout, coming up with ideas, being a sounding board, and just generally supporting me, helping me with the shed, so on and so forth, and the many things that she's done. So a big thank you to my wife Beth, you're wonderful. I think she's gone now, so enough of the flattery. So thanks for watching, and sorry that the video has gone on for quite a while, but I hope it gave you a fair idea of what I'm planning. I hope you enjoy your weekend, and bye for now.